Well, today we're talking with Tim Olson with Carlson Partners, and Carlson Partners are strategic real estate advisors. Welcome, Tim. We're really glad you're here today with a really relevant topic. Could you tell us today a little bit about what Carlson Partners does and how you work with clients?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is my first video, call it conference. Super exciting. So Carlson Partners is a strategic real estate firm focused on tenant representation only. And so what that means, our clients come to us with guidance and help with strategy when it comes to helping them with lease renewals, relocations, acquiring assets, kind of all things real estate we help our clients with. And we're separated between landlord and tenant. We strictly, again, focus on the tenant side of the business. So
well, that's wonderful. I think that a lot of people don't even know that exists, and what a great resource for tenants to have someone on their side. And that's really, that brings up a really good topic for today, which is really relevant in today's market, which is I think there's a lot of businesses struggling right now to pay their rent. And what kind of advice would you give a tenant right now who maybe is wanting to open up a conversation or maybe is having a hard time paying their rent in this environment?
Yeah, well, there's the pandemic has brought a lot of questions, right? And it's similar, but it is different from the 2008 financial crisis. So a lot of my clients are calling me, asking me, what are my options? What can I do? And there are multiple lanes to drive through here, but really it's understanding your current situation. How has this really impacted you? Let's have a conversation, you and I, about how has this impacted you? And from there, we can take a really strategic approach in how we're going to go at and ask for the landlord, whether that is defer rent to a different time down the road, we'll pay it back. So you can defer rent, just get free rent, give a loan. I mean, there's so many different ways to skin this cat. And it really all depends on your business strategy, what was going on with your business. So during this time, it's no different than how I usually operate. We have to align the business strategy with the real estate strategy that's going to benefit you the most as the tenant.
So it's really going to depend on how much this pandemic has really impacted your business. Maybe that's the first phase of the conversation.
Yeah. So my first question will be to my clients has this impacted you? And most of them will say yes. Okay, well, let's talk about it. How has it impacted you, and what makes the most sense for you? Again, so
if in the situation where it hasn't impacted the business at all, should they even be reaching out to their landlord at this point?
I don't think so. I don't think that's the right approach. We really got to look as the landlord, as I always do when I'm consulting my clients and negotiating a new deal, is look at your landlord as a partner. You want to have a good partnership with your landlord and their property management. So going to them for an ask for something when you don't need it, it's just not the right thing to do. And quite frankly, because of the 2008 financial crisis, landlords are very sophisticated, okay? They have representation like me on their side. They have landlord representation. So the first thing they're going to ask is, okay, Tim, we just need to see financial impact because of the pandemic. So can you send financials, and then we can have further discussions. So if you're not hurting, probably not a good thing to go ask if you can't prove. But what I would say is maybe you're not hurting today, but this might be a leg down the road, 6 to 9 months. So what I like to do is I want to tell the landlord, you know what, we might see an impact because of this. We're not going to ask today, but you might hear from us in 6 to 9 months for an ask to help us out with rent. And so
good point. Yeah.
And they appreciate that. They say, okay, thank you. We have 50 other tenants that are actually impacted, and anyone that doesn't need our help today is a huge benefit to us as the landlord, to the properties we own, to the management, to just everything we need to do for our clients. So you just want to really work with each other during this process.
So if your business has been seeing a negative impact due to the pandemic at whatever level, what are some of the options that you should be talking with your landlord about? So you mentioned deferred rent.
Sure.
putting it on the end of the lease or at some later point. What are some other options that a landlord and tenant could work through at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question. As this pandemic continues, I myself and my team are getting smarter and more knowledgeable and understanding our approach to landlords, because in the commercial real estate world, it changes literally every day with vacancy rates, new buildings coming online, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have a long-term lease in place today and you do need some relief, let's go to the landlord with an ask. Let's ask for 3 months of rent, or two months of free rent, or 4 months of free rent, or can we get our rent just reduced in half? There are so many different ways to approach the landlord. I don't think there's one right approach. There's just one right approach for each tenant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what I'm also doing with clients right now, it's being very impactful, is clients that have term or their lease expiring coming up, and they have a 5-year option to renew with 12 months notice, but let's say we have 18 months and our lease expires. It's a really, really good time to approach the landlord for an extension right now. And that might be a longer term extension and just take a little bit of advantage of the current situation because there's so many unknowns. So it is a good time to lock in for a longer term lease, but it's also a good time to provide flexibility. If you don't want to do a long-term lease and you have a 5 option to renew, well, maybe we can get a 2-year option to renew now, or a 3-year. So there's a lot of ways to approach the landlord because of the unknowns. 45 days ago, it was a complete landlord market, and we were playing very aggressive defense, where we're in a position now, I believe, to play some really good offense because of all the unknowns in the commercial real estate world. Now, doing this 17 years, I'm very confident that this market's going to rebound very quick. And I think our window to really negotiate aggressive terms, really more favorable to the tenants, it's about 90 days.
Wow. So there's really an opportunity here as well. So if you want to go on the offense and try to be proactive, you could even really, maybe, like you said, right now might be a time to negotiate a longer lease, or to look at some other terms, or maybe even expand your space, maybe if your business is doing well. That's a really good point. I hadn't even thought about that. An opportunity in this pandemic crisis. That's wonderful. How about the different loan programs available right now? I know that the Paycheck Protection Program has specific language that you can pay your lease with the proceeds. How does that play into some of the negotiations that might happen with your landlord?
Yeah, I mean, your landlord, again, they're very sophisticated, right? So it's going to have to be a really open, the lines of communication are going to have to be open. So you're going to have to let your landlord, let's say you say, landlord, I want to defer a rent for 30 days while my application is being processed and funds come in the door. They're going to say, great, let's defer that. I'm more than likely, let's defer that. I'm happy to do it. When you get your, when funds are authorized in your account, I expect to be fully reimbursed with that. So they're willing to take that risk with you. But they do expect, when you get the loan, when you get paid, to be reimbursed. So again, you can defer for 30 days and add another month to your lease, which I don't recommend doing, because later in leases is when your rent escalations are at their highest. So I don't like deferring rent to later in the lease, because your payments are cheaper today. So if we can figure out a solution that works for you today, let's do that.
Absolutely. What have you seen so far? Has there been success around this? Have landlords and tenants been able to negotiate through this? And is everyone really having some good outcomes?
Yeah, there are so many different landlords. There are REITs, there are insurance companies, there's private equity. So there's a whole gamut of landlords out there, and they all do operate a little bit differently. And some are local and some aren't. And so this is successful. It is being successful right now. Just how successful with each landlord does differ. But I do think there's an opportunity here, because it's a little bit of a gray area. We're coming off 5% vacancy rates 45 days ago, and now we're seeing some companies cut their employment in half, and some are just going away. And so that's really opening up the real estate market for opportunities, and landlords going, oh, whoa, I need to figure this out and keep my tenants and keep my space occupied.
Yeah.
So it has been successful. Just know you really do need to have a plan going into the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, this has been great advice, and I would encourage any of you to reach out directly to Tim Olson at Carlson Partners. His contact information will be at the bottom of this video, as well as on our blog. Reach out to him directly for any follow-up information or support. Thank you, Tim, for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Heidi. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, have a good day.
Bye-bye.